is the first kind of wide-ranging database on corporate crime and misconduct. It covers a wide range of regulatory violations and other kinds of cases brought against companies and as well as nonprofit organizations throughout the United States. It covers areas such as, workplace violations, environmental violations, consumer protection violations, and many more things. We draw the data from more than 250 different federal, state, and local sources. And we also have data that we're continuing to build up on private litigation, mainly class action lawsuits. We've currently got more than 400,000 entries in the database, representing total penalties of more than $600 billion. So I'm going to talk to you today about how to navigate the site and do the kinds of searches and get the kinds of information that might be helpful for your project. We make it possible to look at the data in two main ways, and we call these option 1 and option 2. Option 1 consists of a set of summary pages, kind of pre-set summary pages that give you all the information that we have in the database on a particular company, or we can slice it by industry, by the nature of the violation or the agency that brought the case, and so forth. Option 2 lets you do custom searches by combining various variables. So if we start with option 1, you'll see here there's a drop down at the beginning for parent companies. And what this reflects is the fact that we aggregate the information that we have. We link the individual entries that we have to a universe of more than 3,000 parent companies. And I'll show you the drop down there. And you could see, we got all 3,000 of these companies listed here.
Phil, can you make your image a tiny bit larger? Thanks. Yeah, great.
So we have a list of the drop-down menu here, which shows you all of the companies for which we aggregate information. And these are publicly traded companies, privately held companies, nonprofits as well as for-profits, and companies that are based outside the US as well as inside the US, as long as they have US-based operations and have been penalized by one of the US agencies from which we collect our data. So you can see there are lots of different companies here. If we just pick one, let's say Bristol Myers Squibb, the large pharmaceutical company, you'll see that we have a little bit of basic information about the company. It's penalty total since 2000, because we've collected data going back 20 years, and $1.5 billion is the total of the fines and the settlements that we've collected, because we treat settlements as a form of penalty. And we have a total of 34 individual records that we've linked to Bristol Myers Squibb. And then we start out with two tables, one showing you how their penalty total breaks down by broad offense groups. And these are, various kinds of offenses relating to things like healthcare, competition, government contracting, et cetera. And we give you a breakdown that way. Then we give you a breakdown by more specific offense types. And these offense types, kind of feed into the groups before, but these are more specific. we've got about 9 offense groups, but we've got 75 or so offense types. So if you want to drill down on a more specific kind of misconduct, you could look at the offense types. If we scroll down some more, you'll see a list of the various entities that we've linked to Bristol-Myers Squibb. These are units, subsidiaries, affiliates, as long as they're at least 50% owned by the parent company. We have a couple of links here to other pages, including our other company specific database, subsidy tracker, and as well as information on CARES Act awards that were received by Bristol-Myers Squibb. And after I finish this presentation, my colleague Melissa Chang is going to tell you more about COVID Stimulus Watch. Below all that is a list of all the individual records that we have assembled and linked to Bristol-Myers Squibb. And if you click on any of these links on the left here, you'll get to one of these pages. And so here, this one is a $300 million case brought by the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey. And we have details on that. If we go back, let me get you a different one here that has a description field. So this is $515 million case brought by the Justice Department in 2007. This has to do with off-label promotion of medical products. It's a very common offense for drug companies, and also the paying of kickbacks by the drug company to healthcare providers to basically bribe them into prescribing the company's products. The description here tells you that it was the company and a subsidiary, Apothecon, that together paid $515 million to resolve this, this case. All of our entries have sources, so you can see where the information came from. In this case, it's a press release from 2007, posted by the Justice Department, which gives you a lot more detail about the case. So this serves both to assure you that we didn't make up this case. This is a primary source, and it also gives you more detail than what we can put in the individual entries. So if we go back to the search form, so let's say you want to search, not by an individual company right away, but you want to look at an industry and see which companies have the biggest presence in violation tracker. So if we take the chemical industry, for example, you'll see here that we've got a total of 4,000 records associated with chemical companies, $5.1 billion. And then we show you the 10 companies that account for the largest portions of that. Mosaic is a fertilizer company. We kind of put in fertilizer along with chemicals. This is the German company Bayer, which bought Monsanto. And I should mention that when there's a change in ownership, we change the linkages. So Monsanto, used to be its own parent, and we had entries that were just linked to Monsanto. Once Bayer bought Monsanto, everything got linked to Bayer. Although if you drill down on Bayer, you'll see the individual Monsanto entries still listed there. And then other chemical companies there. And then if you scroll down, you'll see the individual cases that make up that total. So for example, here's a Monsanto case down the bottom of the screen that Monsanto as the company, but now Bayer is the parent for the purposes of our aggregation. We go back here, we show you the various offense groups before. These are the broader categories. You can show, look at any one of these and see which parent companies have the biggest presence, or you can go to the more specific offense types
Will she
that
be
I
able
mentioned.
to fully recover? Question.
That I mentioned before,
Are they able
and
to clear the blockage? Question.
I think somebody needs to mute. If I can. So here, and similarly, you could look by agency. So if you wanted to see, for example, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, all the cases we have, that agency is not very old, so there aren't as many entries as there are for some other, but still it's up to $9.4 billion in penalties. And again, it's the same thing for all these pages, the top 10 parents, and then the individual entries. Do the same thing for state and local agencies, and you could also do it by parent headquarters, either a US state or a foreign country. So if you wanted to take, say, Brazil, see how many entries we have that are linked to parent companies headquartered in Brazil, this is where you go. And you'll see we have 351 of those, $765 million in penalties. So you've got, a variety of companies here, aerospace, oil, etc. So that's basically what we've got in option 1. If you go to down to option 2, this is basically a mix and match kind of thing here. One thing you could do is, if you have the name of a company and you don't think it's linked to a parent, or you're not sure, you could just put in the name of the company here, and it'll search for all of our entries, whether they're linked to a parent or not. So if you put in Acme, you'll see that we've got an entry linked to Acme Foundry, one of our parents, but we've got plenty of Acmes that are not linked to a parent. Because our database is about 430,000 entries, but only about 1/4 of those are linked to a parent, because the others are smaller companies that don't have a parent. And similarly, you could put in other kinds of variables here. If you wanted to see, for example, all of the companies that have penalties of $1 billion or more, you put in 999, etc., and you get 89 results of companies that have penalties of $1 billion or more. And the default here is, it sorts by penalty with the largest on top. You can resort any of these columns as you wish. And there are plenty of other options here. You could put in the parent industry, and there are kind of 2 ways of getting at industries here. Either you could choose the parent industry, which is based on a group of parent designations that we've created. There are about 50 of them. Or for some entries, there'll be a facility industry code, a NAICS code, if the source material that we drew from had that included in it. So for example, agencies like OSHA and EPA do provide the NAICS code, and we capture that, and you can search by the NAICS code. And similarly, you could search by facility, state, and city, again, if that is included in the original source material. Sometimes there's no geographic information provided in an entry because the offense might involve the company as a whole, its operations throughout the US. So you can't specify a particular location. Then we have a bunch of other options. You could choose the particular year. You can choose the presidential administration during which the offense happened if you wanted to compare different kinds of enforcement activity between Obama and Trump, or even Bush. You could do that. We've also got a full text search here if you wanted to look for a phrase that might appear, for example, in one of the descriptions, but not in a company name or an agency name. You can choose that, and it'll show you the results here. So this is an example of a phrase that it's used in some of the environmental records. And also you can choose the nature of the case. We have here case type. You could choose civil, criminal, or criminal cases with deferred prosecution or non-prosecution agreements. But first, let me show you the criminal ones. Most of our entries are civil, because not that many criminal cases get brought against corporations, but some are, and we have more than 1,600 cases here. And some of them are big scandalous cases, involving like Volkswagen for the emissions cheating and things like that. So you can narrow down your search that way. I'll also point out that we have a link here on the top for agency data sources. This shows you all of the sources that we used to assemble our data. Those are the federal ones. Then we have state and local as well. And all of these things link back through to the original data pages, so you can see where things came from. And these kind of match the links that are in the individual entries. We've also got a user guide, an extensive user guide, an update log, tells you every time we've made changes to the site, and a link of analyses that we've done of the data. So I think I will stop there and see if people have any questions or comments.